Hello, and welcome to the Inspiring ECE Podcast. I'm your host, Marcia Nicole, and in today's episode, we will be discussing a topic that unfortunately is all too common in the field of early childhood, and that is, why are educators leaving the field? But before we dive in, I want to remind you that if you're feeling overwhelmed, stressed in your work as an educator, there are resources available to help. At Inspire to Educate, we offer coaching, both one-on-one or group coaching, as well as mentorship programs that are designed to meet the educator's individual needs. We also offer professional development to help you grow within your career. If you are interested in learning more, book a free discovery call from 30 to 60 minutes, and we get to know each other. Talk, see if our programs are a good fit for you. Now, let's get back to the topic. As educators, we know that our work is incredibly important. We are responsible for laying the foundation for children's lifelong learning and helping to shape their futures, and that can be overwhelming at times. But despite this critical role in the field of early childhood educator, we are facing a crisis of extreme turnover. Educators are leaving the field at an alarming rate and having that profound impact on children and families and community. In this episode, we will explore some of challenges that educators are facing, as well as some possible solutions for retaining more educators in the field and supporting those who have left but still want to contribute to the community. So whether you're a seasoned veteran of the field or just starting out, we hope you find this episode informative, inspiring, and empowering. So sit back and let's get started. Get ready to reunite your passion for early childhood education. I'm your host, Marcia Nicole, and welcome to the Inspiring ECE Podcast. Our goal is to build communities where you feel inspired and motivated to be the best version of yourself. So join us as we dive into the world of early childhood education together and reunite that fire that brought you into this profession. As an educator, I know how challenging and rewarding the field can be, and that's why I created this podcast. We'll explore the latest trends and challenges faces in the field. We'll have expert guests and webinars and provide workshop coaching and mentorship programs that will help guide you to your ideal work-life balance. So join us as we dive into the world of early childhood education together and reunite that fire that brought you to this profession in the first place. So let's get started. All right, before we dive into this episode about why early childhood educators are leaving the field, I want you to know that I myself faced those challenges. I have always and still am extremely passionate about working with young children. I love the discovery of learning and shaping their minds and having them explore the world around them. I found myself falling out of love for the work. And that was because I felt frustrated and overwhelmed and not really getting to enjoy the parts of the profession that brought me joy. I hit multiple roadblocks throughout my journey as an educator. I wanted advancement. I always kept learning. Those were all things that stopped me. I was sidetracked. I was overlooked for promotions. All of these things just kept piling up and building and building and building. I struggled with finding balance with my work, my personal life, the long hours, the low pay, and how can I support my growing family? As much as I enjoyed working with the children, I began to feel burnt out and discouraged. I found myself questioning whether if this was the right field for me and whether if I could continue to make meaningful impact without sacrificing my own well-being. And that's when I had to pause and reflect. I'm just sharing my personal story. And I know that everyone's experiences are different and unique. But there are many early childhood educators that are facing similar challenges and difficulties, and they're keeping it to themselves. And it's almost like they're suffering in silence. So, in this episode, I want us to explore reasons why early childhood educators are leaving. And I know there are multiple, and I'm not going to cover them all. I just want you to know that you're not alone. And if you are leaving, and if you've decided to leave, don't feel guilty about it. And if you are staying and you want to continue, then find out how a community can support you to do that. So let's get into it by discussing some of the challenges. And yes, like I mentioned before, there are plenty of challenges and reasons that are unique to you as an educator, but there are generic ones that affect all of us in the field. So we're going to talk about some of those. All right, educators, you and I both know how demanding and challenging this job can be, but we love it. And there are so many reasons why we love it. But with that being said, there are so many reasons why we're losing love for it. Some of those include the amount of hours. Some of us don't get paid planning or programming time, which now means you're taking it home to be able to provide that high quality of care for your children. You have to plan, and that takes time. Also, the lack of support. Some educators aren't fortunate to have any support from admin or supervisors or from their district or from their government. And that can be hurtful. It can be overwhelming. It can be a huge deterrent of why you want to stay in a field that doesn't support you. And of course, one of the main reasons we are leaving this field is the low pay. I've heard from multiple educators that they've now had to go and obtain a second job just to make ends meet. They have to give up their passion and love for profession because they have to make difficult decisions on feeding their family or paying their rent or other things like that. So the low pay is definitely one of the major factors while educators are leaving the field. Other challenges that educators are facing could be difficult work conditions and lack of resources to provide quality care, which now educators feel obligated to spend their own money to provide materials for the students' learning, to provide resources for the children to expand their learning, and the high levels of stress due to turnover. Some educators are now doing the jobs of multiple educators, and that is stressful, overwhelming, and it is such a struggle. I want you to know I hear you. I've been there and I hear you. And in any way that I Aspire to Educate can help you deal with this overwhelm, please never hesitate to communicate and reach out because we are building this community together. So now that we've touched on some of the challenges, I want to bring up one more thing that I've noticed in the past 2 years that early childhood educators had to deal with. And that was when the pandemic arrived and it got into childcare centers, the educators had to pivot rapidly. There was extra added layers of stress when it came to protocols, procedures, and educators had to adapt quickly to all the new guidelines without adequate support and resources. That takes its toll. They had to navigate these complexities of virtual learning, hybrid learning, all of the things and tools that they had in place. They had to adapt quickly. That all added stress and overwhelm, and it lasted 2 years. And not enough administrators and politicians took the time to check in on our educators, to find out how they were pivoting, how they were doing within this crucial time during the pandemic. I understand that these challenges are hard, but I also want to say a lot of you made it through it. You adapted, you showed your resilience as educators, and you did it for the children. And that makes my heart smile. But we also have to think about possible solutions that we can keep going and creating change for upcoming educators to stay within this field. How do we do that? My best way to do that is by giving you some actionable tips. And that is find professional development that keeps lighting your fire. And I know it's hard, and I understand that some of them are financially costly and some of them are definitely no longer relevant towards a cutting edge classroom or evolving learning styles. So yes, we have to do a little bit more research and invest in your continuing your education training and look for those advancement opportunities within the field of early childhood education. There is a lot that educators can do within the field. And that's where you find that coach and mentor and you work together to figure out where your next steps are. My next one is try and foster a positive environment. And boy, do I know that can be difficult. But I've said it before. If you are that positive light in your environment, it's very hard for your coworkers and others to dim that light. So continue to try to reduce stress. Be that educator that smiles a little bit every day or has that happy-go-lucky song in their heart and spread the joy. Another tip would be look for your local advocacy group and try to be a part of the conversation. Write letters to your local MP. Maybe we're taking it broader. It all depends on how you want to advocate for the profession. Remember, many voices create change, and that's what we're trying to do. So find a group, be a part of an advocacy group, and try to evoke change that way as well. When you are looking at joining an advocacy or policy group, these advocacy groups should be looking to improve working conditions, support early childhood educators, as well as promote their fair wages and benefits for ECEs, and improve the regulations and guidelines for the field so we could build a better profession. These are tips for educators that would like to stay in the field and feel like this is their passion. Those are those actionable tips. So I want you to remember, never forget that the impact you are having on the lives of the children within your care. So let's continue to move forward and work together so we can serve the children of the future. But also, for educators that are staying in the field, I want you to take a minute and listen closely. This is your part to take action. I need you to prioritize your own well-being. I need you to advocate for your profession within your situation. So start small. Maybe it's just being positive around the center. Maybe it's a group of you writing a letter to somebody else. Maybe it's all of you signing up for a group coaching program. Create that supportive environment. I want you to start there. If you have decided to stay in the profession, find out how you can reunite that fire and that passion, because there are many educators out there willing to help and guide. And definitely we need to keep this profession enriched with educators that absolutely love this field. All right, educators. And for the educators that have decided to leave the field, that is okay. What we don't want you to do is feel guilty. Your situation and your reasonings are your own. But to us, you'll always be an educator at heart. But there are still opportunities for you to provide to the community of early childhood. So my tips for you is consider an opportunity of consulting or mentoring graduate students or educators that are looking for some guidance along the way. Share your expertise. Another way is through advocacy as well. Just because you're not in the classroom anymore doesn't mean you're not a part of the early childhood education community. Your voice and experience to speak out against the challenges that educators are facing is important to supporting the early years. Share your story of why you felt that you had to leave a profession you loved so dearly. Share your story, share your voice, and keep advocating for change for this profession. And that's it for today's episode of the Inspiring ECE podcast, where we talked about the challenges of why early childhood educators are leaving the field and offered a possible solution to create a better outcome for everyone involved. Remember, if you are an educator who has decided to leave the field, you can still contribute to the early years community in meaningful ways through mentorship, advocacy, and collaboration. And for those who are staying in the field, keep in mind that you are not alone and there are resources to support you. Thank you for listening, and until next time. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Inspiring ECE podcast. Thank you for joining us. We had a blast, and we hope you did too. Remember, this is your community, and we want to hear from you. So connect with us on social media at Aspire to Educate. Visit our website at aspiretoeducate.com and also send us an email. All the details will be in the description or the show notes. And don't forget, we're here to support you through your educational journey. So subscribe and tune in for future episodes. And let's continue to inspire and support each other to the best versions of ourselves. Until next time, have yourself a great day.